There's a particular kind of person who moves through the world carrying a question they cannot name. It's not arrogance that sets them apart, and it's not a sense of being better. It's something quieter, something that lives beneath the surface of their daily life like an underground river. From a very young age, they feel the weight of a gaze that isn't quite their own, as if they're being watched not by others, but by something inside themselves. They look at the world and sense that there is more happening than what is visible. They feel the edges of things, the spaces between words, the unspoken currents that move through rooms and relationships. And because of this, they often feel alone. This is not the loneliness of being disliked or rejected, though that may come too. This is a loneliness of perceiving what others do not seem to notice. It is the isolation of the child who sees the sadness in their parents' smile, the teenager who feels the collective anxiety of their school like static in the air, the adult who understands that most conversations are rituals of avoidance rather than genuine exchange. They do not feel superior because of this awareness. They feel estranged. They wonder if something is wrong with them. They learn early to hide what they see, to soften their intensity, to pretend they do not feel the things they feel. And in that hiding, a kind of splitting begins. One part of them learns to perform normalcy. Another part, deeper and truer, goes underground. The mythology of the chosen one is ancient, and it appears in every culture because it speaks to something real in the human psyche. It is not about being selected by fate or marked by the divine in a literal sense. It is about the psychological experience of being called from within, of carrying a sensitivity or awareness that demands a different kind of life. The hero in these stories is never chosen because they are perfect. They are chosen because they are awake to their own suffering and to the suffering of the world. They are chosen because they cannot look away. And that inability to look away, that openness to pain and complexity, is what sets the journey in motion. But here is what the old stories understood and what modern interpretations often forget. The call is not a blessing. It is a burden. And the one who answers it does not become powerful or enlightened in the way they imagined. They become responsible. If you stayed with us this far, know that this space is meant for you. There is no pressure, only presence. If these words feel familiar, consider staying a while longer. In the beginning, the one who feels this call does not understand it. They only know that life as it is presented to them feels insufficient. The scripts they are handed, go to school, get a job, build a life, repeat, feel hollow, not because these things are meaningless, but because something in them demands a deeper confrontation with existence. They are the ones who ask why when others ask how. They are the ones who lie awake at night, not worrying about failure, but about whether their life will matter. They are the ones who feel a strange grief for a world they have never known, a nostalgia for a home that does not exist in any geography. And this grief, this longing, becomes a fuel for their journey. But it also becomes their isolation. Because when you feel things as deeply, when you see things as clearly, you become dangerous to the comfortable structures around you, not intentionally, not through rebellion or defiance, but simply by existing in a state of heightened awareness. You become a mirror, and people do not like what they see in mirrors unless they are ready to look. So you learn to dim yourself. You learn to laugh at jokes that aren't funny, to nod along with ideas that feel empty, to participate in systems you don't believe in. You learn to survive by disappearing. And in that disappearance, you lose track of the very thing that made you feel different in the first place. You begin to doubt your own perceptions. You wonder the call you felt was just arrogance, just delusion, just a fantasy of someone who couldn't fit in and invented a story to explain their loneliness. This is the first great trial, the trial of self-doubt, the trial of wondering if your sensitivity is actually weakness, if your awareness is actually pretension, if your refusal to accept easy answers is actually cowardice. And many people stop here. They decide that the pain of being different is not worth it. They fold themselves into the shape the world demands. They become functional, practical, invisible, and there is no judgment in that choice. Survival is sacred, but for some, the cost of that folding is too high. For some, the call does not go away. It grows louder in the silence. It becomes a pressure in the chest, a restlessness in the limbs, a knowing that will not be ignored. And eventually, something breaks. The breaking comes in many forms. It might be a crisis, a loss, a betrayal, an illness. It might be a sudden realization in the middle of an ordinary day that you cannot keep living the life you have built. It might be subtle, a slow erosion of meaning, until nothing feels real anymore. But however it comes, it serves the same function. It shatters the false self you constructed to survive. It strips away the performance. It forces you to confront the question you have been avoiding. Who are you when no one is watching? What do you actually believe? What do you actually want? And in that confrontation, the real journey begins. Because the call, the sense of being chosen, is not an invitation to greatness. It is an invitation to honesty. It is the psyche demanding that you stop lying to yourself. It is the soul insisting that you face the parts of yourself you have hidden, the desires you have denied, the anger you have swallowed, the grief you have buried. It is the unconscious rising up and saying, you cannot keep running. And when you finally stop running, when you finally turn around and face what has been chasing you, you discover something terrifying. It is not a monster. It is you, the you that you abandoned, the you that you judged, the you that you locked away because it was too much, too raw, too real. This is the confrontation with the shadow. This is the moment when a hero in the myth descends into the underworld, faces the dragon, wrestles with the demon. But it is not a literal descent. It is a psychological one. You meet the parts of yourself you disowned, the rage you never expressed, the need you never admitted, the power you were afraid to claim, the vulnerability you were taught to hide. And the work is not to destroy these parts. The work is to integrate them, to recognize that they are not separate from you. They are you, and they have been waiting for you to come back. Around the middle of the journey, something shifts. You begin to see that the traits you thought made you weak are actually sources of strength. The sensitivity that made you feel fragile is also what allows you to read the emotional landscape of any situation. The intensity that made you feel too much is also what gives you access to passion, creativity, and depth. The inability to accept superficial answers is also what drives you toward truth. You start to realize that you were never broken. You were never wrong. You were just carrying a kind of awareness that the world around you was not equipped to hold. And that awareness, that perception, is not a curse. It is a responsibility. But responsibility is not the same as specialness. And this is where many people lose their way. They take the recognition of their own gifts and turn it into a story of superiority. They decide that because they see what others don't, they are better than others. They use their awareness as a weapon, as a way to judge, to separate, to elevate themselves. They become what they once despised. They become rigid, dogmatic, closed. They mistake insight for enlightenment. They mistake sensitivity for wisdom. And in doing so, they betray the very call that awakened them. The true chosen one, if we must use that language, is the one who refuses this trap. The one who understands that awareness is not a trophy. It is a task. The one who sees clearly and then asks, what can I do with this seeing? How can I serve? How can I ease suffering, including my own? How can I bring what I have learned into the world in a way that does not create more division, more hierarchy, more pain? This is the movement from ego to service. This is the moment when a hero stops seeking their own glory and starts asking how they can contribute to the whole. It is quiet. It is humble. It is often invisible. If you're still here, walking this path with us, you might feel that this is more than just a story. And if that's true, perhaps this is a place you'll return to. No obligation, only invitation. The world does not reward this kind of integrity easily. In fact, it often punishes it. Because the one who refuses to play the game, who refuses to compromise their values for comfort or approval, who insists on living with honesty and depth, becomes a threat to the systems that rely on compliance. They are not activists or revolutionaries in the loud sense. They are simply people who will not lie. And that refusal, that commitment to truth, has consequences. They lose relationships. They lose opportunities. They are misunderstood, dismissed, sometimes attacked. And in those moments, the temptation to give up is overwhelming. The temptation to say, why should I keep trying? Why should I keep being honest when it only brings me pain? Why should I care about a world that does not care about me? And here is where the final transformation happens. Because the answer to that question is not found in the world. It is found in the self. You keep going not because you'll be rewarded. You keep going because it is who you are. You keep going because the alternative, living a lie, is no longer an option. You keep going because you have tasted something real, something true, and you cannot untaste it. You keep going because the call is not something imposed on you from outside. It is something rising from inside. It is your own soul demanding that you live in alignment with what you know to be right. And that alignment, that integrity, is its own reward. Not because it brings happiness or success or recognition, but because it brings peace. The peace of knowing that you are not betraying yourself. This is the ultimate realization. The chosen one is not chosen by fate, by destiny, by the universe, or by God. The chosen one is the one who chooses themselves. The one who says, I will not abandon who I am, even when it is hard. I will not hide my truth, even when it is inconvenient. I will not shrink to make others comfortable. I will not inflate to impress others. I will simply be what I am, as fully and as honestly as I can. And I will do the work that my awareness demands of me. Not because I am special, but because I am awake. And to be awake is to be responsible. The people who realize they have made a mistake in underestimating such a person are not villains in some cosmic drama. They are ordinary people who are operating from their own fear, their own pain, their own limited understanding. When they see the person they dismissed or attacked continuing to walk their path with integrity, continuing to hold their truth without bitterness or revenge, something shifts in them. They realize that the threat they perceived was not real. They realize that the person they tried to diminish was never trying to dominate them. They were simply trying to exist. And that realization, that recognition, is the beginning of their own awakening. This is how consciousness spreads, not through force or conversion, but through presence, through the quiet example of someone who refuses to participate in the cycles of violence and fear. But the one on the path cannot wait for that recognition, cannot depend on it, cannot need it, because the moment you start performing your integrity for an audience, it stops being integrity. The moment you start doing the right thing to prove something to others, you have lost the thread. The work has to be its own meaning. The path has to be its own destination. You walk it because you cannot do otherwise. And if others see and understand, that is a gift. And if they do not, that is also fine. Your value does not come from their validation. It comes from your alignment with what is true in you. This is the hardest lesson, because we are social creatures. We want to be seen, understood, appreciated. We want our efforts to matter. We want our pain to be acknowledged. And when that does not happen, when we give and sacrifice and hold to our principles and the world seems not to care, it feels unbearable. But this is where the deepest freedom lies, in the release of the need for external recognition, in the understanding that you are not doing this for applause. You are doing this because your soul will not let you do otherwise. And that is enough. The fire that the title speaks of, the realization that they cooked themselves, is the moment when those who opposed or underestimated the person on this path recognize their own error. But it is not a moment of revenge or triumph. It is simply a moment of truth. They see that the person they tried to control or diminish was never under their power to begin with. They see that their attacks only revealed their own fear. They see that the person kept walking, kept growing, kept becoming more themselves, regardless of what was thrown at them. And in that seeing, they are confronted with their own choices. They are confronted with the question of whether they too will choose truth, or whether they will continue to live in reaction and defense. But again, this is not the concern of the one on the path. They cannot carry the responsibility for another person's awakening. They can only be faithful to their own. They can only keep walking, keep choosing honesty, keep doing the work that their awareness reveals to them, keep integrating the shadow, keep serving the whole in whatever way their unique gifts allow. And in that fidelity, in that persistence, they become something the world desperately needs. Not a savior, not a guru, not a leader, just a human being who has done the hard work of becoming whole, who has faced their darkness and brought it into the light, who has refused the easy answers and sat with the complexity, who has chosen truth over comfort, integrity over approval, depth over distraction. And the beautiful thing is that this path is available to everyone. There is no literal choosing. There is only the moment when you recognize a call in yourself. The moment when you realize that you cannot keep living in the shallow end. The moment when you understand that your sensitivity, your awareness, your inability to accept easy lies is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is your soul's way of guiding you toward your particular work in this life. And that work is not grand or dramatic. It is mostly quiet. It is mostly internal. It is the work of becoming a person of integrity, a person of presence, a person who can hold space for complexity and contradiction without collapsing into simplicity or cynicism. As we come to the end of this reflection, if something here has touched you, know that this conversation continues. You're welcome here. Whenever you need to remember, the world does not need more people who believe they are chosen in the literal sense. It does not need more hierarchy, more elitism, more separation. What it needs are people who are willing to do the inner work, people who are willing to face their own shadows, people who are willing to live with integrity, even when it costs them, people who understand that true power is not power over others, but power with others, power in service of the whole. And that kind of power does not come from being selected or destined. It comes from choosing every day to be honest, to be present, to be awake. So if you have felt the call, if you have felt different, if you have struggled with the weight of your own awareness, know that you are not alone. Know that this is an ancient pattern. Know that the mythology of the chosen one is not about being better. It is about being willing. Willing to see, willing to feel, willing to change, willing to serve. And in that willingness, in that openness, you become not separate from humanity, but more deeply human, more deeply connected to the suffering and beauty of existence, more deeply capable of contributing something real. The ones who thought they had the upper hand, who thought they could dismiss or control or diminish the person walking this path, eventually come to a reckoning. They realize that their strategies were based on a misunderstanding. They thought they were dealing with someone who wanted what they wanted, power, status, control. But they were dealing with someone who wanted something entirely different. Truth, integrity, alignment. And you cannot compete with someone who is not playing the same game. You cannot defeat someone who is not trying to win. You can only watch as they continue to walk their path, unmoved by your attacks, unbothered by your judgments, committed only to their own becoming. And in that watching, if you are wise, you begin to question your own choices. You begin to wonder what it would be like to live that way, to be that free, to be that true. And that wondering is the beginning of your own journey. This is the gift the so-called chosen one offers the world. Not a teaching, not a doctrine, just a living example of what it looks like to refuse the lie, to refuse the performance, to refuse the game, and to walk step by step towards something more real. In the end, the chosen one is simply the one who chooses awareness over comfort, chooses growth over stagnation, chooses service over ego, chooses presence over distraction. And that choosing is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice, a constant returning to what is true, a constant releasing of what is false. It is hard, it is lonely, it is often thankless, but it is also the only path that leads to real peace. The peace that comes not from getting what you want, but from becoming who you are. The peace that comes not from being recognized by the world, but from recognizing yourself. The peace that comes not from being chosen by something outside of you, but from honoring the call that has always been inside of you, waiting for you to listen, waiting for you to answer, waiting for you to begin.